Taiwan and China have a complex relationship recently brought into the spotlight due to Taipei's ardent push for democratic values and Beijing's firm belief in autocratic control. The United States is also involved in this dynamic, according to TVBS commentator Wenchi Yu, who asked Daniel Russell and Jianmin Cao what's next for cross-strait relations in the latest episode of TVBS Meeting Room.
When it comes to the connection between U.S.-China relations, which are clearly deteriorating, and cross-strait relations, that there's a visible correlation between the two tracks. And the dramatic downturn in U.S.-China relations and the advent of kind of adversarial strategic rivalry, I think, is really a function of fundamental mismatch between Xi Jinping's vision for China in the world and the values and the system that the United States, other Western countries have built and that Taiwan embraces. So the U.S.-China strategic rivalry is clearly a negative factor in cross-strait relations for no other reason than it sort of removes an important reason for Beijing to show restraint. And it casts the U.S. actions towards Taiwan as part of an attack against Beijing's core interests in the eyes of the mainland.
But right now, as Daniel suggested, there's a fierce competition between U.S. and China. Seems to me U.S. doesn't mind other countries or peoples in this part of the world challenge in China. And that has tipped the balance. So, so right now the independence movement people, I think they are encouraged, and they continue the efforts to stoke the tensions. That has made the situation not much worse.
The deterioration of cross-strait relations came as a major surprise, especially given the meeting between former President Ma Ying-jeou and President Xi Jinping in 2015. This unprecedented diplomatic gesture heralded a new degree of cross-strait cooperation, yet here we are today.
The Ma-Xi summit in November 2015 was the very first time the two sides had an opportunity to actually meet face to face. So I think that was really a good opportunity for the two sides to get something out. And they did get something out. Also, they agreed to set up a telephone hotline. So in case of any crisis, they will be able to reach to the other side. They also agreed to continue the talks on cross-strait free trade agreement. That was extremely important.
I think the Ma-Xi summit itself we saw as important symbolically, as a hopeful sign that there could be continued progress in cross-strait relations. We certainly hoped that it would lead to an ongoing constructive dialogue. But at the same time, we weren't naive, and we didn't have too many illusions about what to expect from the PRC. It came in the run-up, as Dean Zhao said, to the presidential election in Taiwan. So we understood that Beijing might be trying to put its thumb on the scale, so to speak, in the elections. I remember also President Ma's made important points about rejecting Beijing's attempt to isolate Taiwan diplomatically, rejecting military pressure, economic exclusion, and calling for patience, which certainly is still badly needed. But once you remember, the world doesn't stand still. This is a different era now, and the status quo isn't frozen in time. It's a constant balancing act.
In light of the different
I
political
think my
climates in
question for Danny
Taiwan
in
and the United
particular
States,
was,
Wenchi Yu
was the
questioned how
US
the recent
aware
US
of
midterms
sort
and
of
local
the
elections in Taiwan
discrepancy
would shape
between
trilateral
how
relations
Taiwanese
over the
people
next
at
4
that
years,
time,
leading
public
up to the
opinion,
respective
felt
presidential
about,
races in
you know,
2024.
Taiwan coast.
I think what's happening is that whenever there's election in all those democracies in the Western world, Taiwan included, South Korea, Japan, Germany, Great Britain, not to mention the United States, there's a China bash in. And the China bash in is the most severe here in Taiwan. If you refer to the public opinion surveys, because you know, we have been crying wolf for too long, 70%, nearly 70% of Taiwanese people don't believe Chinese would attack. Nearly 70% of the Taiwanese people believe the United States would come to help. It's on this public opinion backdrop that the ruling party has been able to do the things they have been doing.
Well, I'd be a little careful about convincing ourselves that the threat from the mainland is simply crying wolf. That people can. It may be that people have trouble imagining the mainland attacking, but it may also have been that people in the Ukraine had trouble believing that Russia would attack. The lesson from the midterms in both Taiwan and the United States is that, you know, predictions about an election outcomes are not reliable. And you certainly cannot draw a straight line from the results of local elections or the US midterms to what's going to happen 2 years later in elections for national office.
Still, the participants in this episode of TVBS Meeting Room agree that cross-strait relations will remain tense with China, ratcheting up pressure and using actions by the Taiwan side and the US as a pretext to claim it's just responding. Dimitri Rias, TVBS, World Taiwan.
I would like your view. Do you think that's going to harden Washington, D.C.